Peace, brother. I appreciate the video response to my comment. I'm going to do the same and likewise. You had a couple of issues with what I said. And the first thing you brought up was the fact that who was God speaking to? Well, the first thing come to my mind is the people whom he made a blood covenant with. Then you ask, why did God tell them not to do these things that was in Deuteronomy 7:3? To maintain the covenant that he made with these people. Then you went on to say something about understanding things to know is not for you to do. Or what. I don't get into all that Bible speak. I'm just going to leave that alone. But the fourth issue you had, which was very interesting, you said God made it crystal clear. God made it crystal clear that this does not apply to me or you. As if something had to happen, that now everything that God forbade us to do, now we are allowed to do. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that. That's what you say, sir. And you go on to bring up when God told these people that he was going to bring the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, I don't care, the Shiites, the Dynamites, and bring them at war against with the Jews. And once he does this, then this is supposed to be the end of the commandments that he put in Deuteronomy 7:3. And it does not say that. Like I say, that is what you're saying, sir. In order, and see, it brought an understanding to me that you did not understand what this was. This is not a universal agreement, like you said. You were 100% correct about that. But what you neglected to realize that this was a generational agreement. This commandment was not just for these specific people, and once this specific task is done, now it absolves you from. No, this was a generational commandment, which means each generation that want to remain in the favor of God, these are the things that you're going to have to do. You went on to go back to Deuteronomy chapter 7 to read the passage from the beginning as if that was going to undo what I said in chapter 3. But what it did do was just strengthen my argument. You see, when you go back and read what chapter 7 said, God referred to these people as the Lord thy God. The Lord speaks to himself. Thy God speaks specifically to these people. Out of all the nations of the earth, I am the Lord thy God. Thy meaning your God. He goes on to say that I am a faithful and loyal God, which means as long as you keep my covenant, I will not turn my back on you and be the God of other nations. So if you identify yourself as the people whom God made a covenant with, even after he turned over these nations to you, you still have to keep that covenant. That is what I think that you fail to understand. Then you go do some biblical hopscotch over to 2 Corinthians, where you're talking about being unevenly yoked. You're saying that it was not this commandment was not about race. It was about belief. Respectfully, this is not what God said. This is what you're saying. What God said was both. It was both race, your nationality, and your belief. If we start blending with other nations, you're going to contaminate your nation. And then you're going to contaminate your beliefs. You're going to start believing other things, like it's okay to marry outside your nation. It's okay to practice other gods. Because see, the nations that he was talking about in the Bible, if God had came down and did what he said he was going to do, and it has not happened. Like I said, this does not absolve us of our covenant. If God came today and handed these nations over to the Hebrew Israelites, these would be the Europeans, the Indians, the Asians. When you have the Asians worshiping the Buddha, the Europeans, they're kissing the feet of the Virgin Mary, kissing the ring of the Pope. The Indians worshiping the God with 8 arms. These would be these nations that he's talking about. Those were the nations in the Bible that was inconsistent to God's beliefs. These would be the nations today. You see, so if you believe in this, well, let me just put it like this. If this is what you're preaching to your following, then I believe you're pandering to your base. I believe you're telling them what makes them feel good amongst each other and what makes them look good to the world. You see, I don't pander to my base. I tell them the truth, or I tell them what I believe to be true, whether you like it or not. But let me do some biblical hopscotch. I'm going to jump over to Matthew. When Jesus Christ told his disciples to go out into the world and preach his second coming, he told them specifically, don't bother going to the land of Samaritans and the land of the Gentiles. Now, who were the Gentiles and who were the Samaritans? The Samaritans was a nation of people who blended with other nations. They claim to be this, but they look to be that. They marrying this, and they haven't. Don't even go to these people. Who were the Gentiles? The Gentiles were white people. And I know you're going to say, "Oh no, they wasn't." Blah blah. Okay, let me help you out. Let's say I'm completely wrong about the Gentiles being at that time in the biblical time as white people. Let's say I'm completely wrong about that. Name me any point in time in the history of the world that it was safe to interact with white people. Where white people was ever a party of or contributed to the prosperity of people outside of their race. There's never been a point in time where it's ever been safe to interact with these people. So you don't need God to tell you to avoid these people. You shouldn't even need me to tell you this. Their own history should tell you. But this is what you do because, see, I believe that this is what you either condone or this is what you participating in. And then you have your followers that condone this action. But it's not consistent to what the Bible say. So again, you're going to have to ask yourself, are you pandering to your people to look good in the eyes of the world? Or are you preaching to your people to look good in the eyes of God? It's up to you.